Hailing back from the days of Medarot 2, this model is incredibly iconic and well loved by anyone who has watched the anime. It is DRA01, the Ancient. With a kit of field repair, crossfire set and release, float legs, and the leg ability of adversity, which buffs all leg stats minus armor and heavy limit for every debuff applied to self. Now, this is a model, as mentioned, everyone will know and love and has been waiting on for quite some time, especially us folks here in the Western community that love the anime and well enjoy what it offered. This model not only is iconic, but in a surprising turn of events, actually was one of the few that was able to keep his kit, not from the early days, almost one-to-one, which makes him a very easy transition model that people just starting the game out but recognize the anime can get into and use relatively easily. Field Repair on the head part is a healing skill that, when used, will grant the self or to an ally the amount of healing skill relative to the healing skill on the medal and match based on the terrain matching that they're on. So naturally, that means if you are in a terrain match of A rank or better and your healing mastery is moderately high, you can most certainly make use of that decently well. But if you're on a terrain that you're not so great on, or if your healing skill isn't all that high, you probably will not see too much. Plus, given that it is a heavy part, does kind of give a little bit of a drawback to the Ancient in this case, in favor of other healers that are non-heavy. Crossfire Set is a setup-based skill that, when once placed on the field, will set a turret and plant in your side and in your favor. The only way to use this plant, of course, is if you use Crossfire Release, which is on the left arm. So, of course, Crossfire Set and Release together is a nasty two-hit combo if you absolutely want to lay waste to the enemy and, of course, have the time to do so and can stall long enough to actually set it and then release it without the Ancient getting crippled or nuked in the process. Now, it is also worth noting that because the Ancient is a spotlight model, which means he is joining the permanent banner and anyone can collect him from any banner as they make pulls, it is also worth noting that compared to most other models that do have CF set and release, such as Saikachi's, Grand Beetle, and Kaiser Beetle, if you were to make a direct comparison, the Ancient is arguably going to be the weakest of them all. But, of course, with him being a spotlight and the first ever instance of them being available for free in the permanent banner, I suppose that is a pretty fair trade-off. Plus, having a total power in the rough 2k range is still not bad between the base power of set and release together. Float legs means that the Ancient will have very good coverage across most terrains as expected of a float leg, and compared to most others that you might see that are not boss types or event rewards, the Ancient's actually isn't too bad. With a base mobility of 752, he's actually not too shabby in the speed department, in compared to most other free float legs in the permanent pool that are usually between the 400 and 500 range. At best. Sometimes it's a little higher, but at best. So he's already off to a relatively good start. That's not to say he's going to be the fastest thing on the field, but he does have a pretty fair amount going for him. An evade of 1068 isn't too shabby either, as it does mean he will have a pretty fair time dodging or grazing incoming attacks. A melee resist of 1180, almost 1200 is nice, as it does mean he can hold his own decently well, but a shoot resist of just barely 600 is going to be one of his big weaknesses in this case, as it means that while he can hold his own up close and personal, that enemy taking pot shots and sniper shots from afar is going to definitely put this dragon down faster than he really wants to be. In terms of armor, one of the other big drawbacks to the Ancient in this case is he is going to be moderately light on it. However, that is mostly geared between his arms, with a head HP of about 4,000, arms about 2,900, which is just a little squishy, especially for the kind of skills that they are, and a leg armor of about 4,450 in this case. A lot of his armor is going to be geared between his head and his legs, so you want to pay close attention to making sure he doesn't lose anything quickly, because if you lose one arm or the other, that effectively does the Ancient in, and he becomes 100% useless, which is a very big linchpin, and why using him can be kind of iffy on the field. However, he does have the leg ability of adversity, which will make him just a little bit stronger, a little bit more resistant, and just a little bit faster if he does get slapped with debuffs. But of course, exercise caution when using these, because generally it's never good to have these on you on purpose. That being said, as a pure set scorer, I still do have to rate the Ancient at a pretty solid 6.5 out of 10. His kit together, again, is pretty much the exact same one that he's had in the early days, so that's always nice to see, but it is very reliant on itself. And if you lose one of his arms, that effectively makes him entirely useless on the field until you can bring it back, or if you can bring it back. And if you don't have a healer on the team, well, then he's just kind of there as a meat shield and nothing more. But if you do mix his parts up and say split the arms between two twins on the same team, then you can definitely start cooking some chaos. And that being said, as a mixed parts score, very easily have to rate him at an 8 out of 10. Heavy field repair you probably may or may not use super often, if at all, like I mentioned, in favor of other healing skills that are non-heavy. But if you were to mix Crossfire set and release across your team between two twin fighters, that is where you can really start cooking, like I mentioned, because now Crossfire is no longer reliant on one bot, but on two that can take turns back to back. The only thing you really have to pay attention to in that case is that the one using set is always going to be faster than the one using release, and just continually turn those back to back. And as mentioned, the leg stats on the Ancient aren't too shabby either, so you can still make pretty solid use of those too if you do manage to collect him.